Thank you for taking the time to review this video on how to prepare to complete the COVID-19 Child Care Stabilization Grant application. My name is Carol Prentice. I'm acting as Special Project Manager for THREAD and their COVID-19 federal stimulus funding. This funding for the Stabilization Grant is possible through the American Rescue Plan Act, which is also referred to as ARPA, A-R-P-A. There are several things that you can do to make the application process as smooth and easy as possible. In this video, I will review the steps you should take before you sit down to begin the actual application process. So let's get started. There's several documents that you will really want to have at hand when you sit down to complete the application. I'll review these briefly now, and then we'll talk about them in more detail a little bit later. You'll want to have your program childcare license. You'll want to have your a State of Alaska letter or notice from the Child Care Program Office that includes your ISIS number. You'll want to have your State of Alaska business license and an expense worksheet, which we will provide to you and have available on our website, THREAD's website. And you will also want to have a completed W-9 and your income tax return. So we'll talk about each of these in detail. I'm going to pull something else up on the screen here, just so you can see it, and we'll go back to this later, but this is the THREAD application for phase 1 and this process. However, right now I'm going to show you the first document we talked about, which is your facility license, your child care program license. The reason you want to have this handy is that you need to know what type of license you have. For instance, I have, in my made-up example, a licensed child care center. And I also want to know from this document what my license capacity is, because you will need to know that to complete your application. My license capacity is 25. Now, something else you want to make note of is what your current enrollment is and what your desired enrollment is. You won't find those on the license, but just to make note that you want to have those numbers available. So the second document I'd like to show is a sample that the Child Care Program Office prepared for me that is one of the several different documents that identify my ISIS number. This stands for the Integrated Child Care Information System. And you would need this, for instance, to bill for the Child Care Assistance Program. It would be found on official communication, in this case, a license issuance form, and you will need to have that ISIS number in order to complete your application. The third thing that you'll need to know is the legal name of your business. And this example here happens to be from my own business, because that's the license I have access to. But the legal name is here. In my case, it's Prentice Consulting. And the State of Alaska issues these business licenses that do look quite different than the State of Alaska Child Care Program. So it's important that you know your legal business name. So you want to have that on hand. And finally, this is something that you won't have seen before. It's an expense worksheet estimator. One of the items that you'll be asked to provide on the application is an estimate of your monthly expenses. Now, some of you may already know that from your own budgeting, but if you don't know that, then this stabilization grant expense tracking is provided in order to help you calculate that. And another thing that might be really helpful is that these categories here are the categories that are eligible for this grant funding. So this kind of helps you know within personnel, facility costs, personal protective equipment or PPE, what are the qualifying expenses that are listed in these subcategories here. This expense sheet will be available on the THREAD website. So you can print this, you can use it all year, but you can certainly use it to help you estimate your monthly expenses. And finally, you will need to have a completed W-9 form. Now, the exception to this is that if you received Thread's Quality Initiative 2 funding it would have been the year 2020, you are not required to provide a W-9 form because we already have that on file for you. If you did not receive the Thread Quality Initiative 2 funding, then you will need to complete the W-9 form. So let's take a look at this in more detail. I've pulled this up. I've already saved this on my browser, and so it was easy to pull it up. But you can go to the IRS website. We also provide a link to this on the application, so you can download the form and complete it. I'm going to review the items that you are required to complete for your W-9. So first of all is your name, which can sound pretty easy, but your name actually has to match the name on your income tax return, which is why we suggested that you take a look at your income tax return prior to beginning the application process. For instance, my name on my income tax return is Carol, my middle initial M, and my last name. So you'll want to check that out to make sure you get that correct. Item number 2 is to enter the name of your business as shown on your State of Alaska business license, which is partly why we looked at that business license as well, because that's the name that you're going to want to enter here. And those things have to match, so that's important. Item number 3 is to check the box that's appropriate for you in terms of your federal tax classification. I can't answer this for you, but there are extensive instructions, several pages of instructions, so you can refer to the appropriate section there and check the box that is your federal tax classification. Number 4, you don't have to be concerned about. Number 5 is your address, which again sounds pretty straightforward, but this needs to be your business address and your business mailing address. So even if that's a PO box, that's what needs to go in here. It doesn't have to be a physical address, but it needs to be your mailing address. For instance, my mailing address is a PO box, and that's what I would enter here, even though that's not physically where my office is located. So your address, city, state, and zip. That's it for that top section. Part 2 is your taxpayer identification number, which can be one of 2 things. It can be your Social Security number, or it can be your employer identification number, and you complete that in those boxes. Let me also just mention that if you do go to the IRS website and download and pull this up, it is a fillable form online, so that makes it a little easier. And then you can get to this point, having typed or entered it in on the screen, print the form off to apply your signature and the date. Once you've signed it and dated it, you'll need to scan this so that you're ready to upload this when you're prompted to do so in the application process. So speaking of, let's go to the section that talks about the W-9. Toward the very end, Part 5, IRS Form W-9. So as I said earlier, did my program receive COVID-19 Quality Initiative 2 in 2020? If I'd say yes, then it's like, thank you, we already have a W-9 on file. But if I say no, I'm provided the opportunity to upload that W-9 that I've already completed at this point, and then it will be attached to my application and I'm done. So once you've completed all these steps that we just reviewed, you're ready to begin your actual application. The application is found on the Thread website. This application will be available on the Thread website, and we encourage you to watch the video completing the COVID-19 Childcare Stabilization Grant, actually how to complete, also found on the Thread website. Finally, I just do want to mention that Thread is offering several webinars which will provide technical assistance. They'll be live, so we'll have interactive questions and answers. And also on the Thread website, we will have frequently asked questions page, and we'll be adding to that as questions arise and keeping that FAQ updated. So hopefully this has been helpful in preparing to get ready to complete your application. And we thank you for taking the time to watch. Thank you.